Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better brace yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is a Freight Coach podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, but most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. Steve Setka. Yeah, man, this is, it's not could be, it's going to be massive. And I've been, I covered it last week, and then I got probably some people coming on maybe tomorrow to continue to talk about this, right? Because this is legitimately the biggest story in our industry right now that's not being talked about en masse. And it's going to be very, very, very bad when it goes in, and it's not going to, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. All right. So it's like, I don't necessarily want to sound like I'm fear mongering or anything like that, but I truly think that this shutdown, based on the fact of like what the union's asking for, from the wage increase, like I get where they're coming from on the slowing of automation, because they don't want to work themselves out of a job, which I can respect, right, ultimately. But I think with the pay amount that they're looking for and the increase is probably why they're not talking at all right now. And then the information that I have received up until this morning is they still have not engaged in any negotiations or any further conversations. So therefore, tonight at midnight, you guys, it's shutting down. East Coast ports are shutting down. And my guest last week, Lauren Began, when she was on here, she had said that essentially for every day that the port is shut down, it's like 5 or 6 days of recovery of what it will take to kind of clear out those backlogs and everything else to get the ports back up to running, right? So again, it's a general rule of thumb on that, but it's going to be pretty interesting to see how long this goes and where and if it's going to get resolved quickly. And my gut is, though, ultimately, again, this is my opinion and my opinion only, that this is going to last for a while, that this is not going to be a short shutdown at all. So, yeah, I mean, contingency plans upon contingency plans, right? Like it's going to be chaotic out there in the market, I think, with the fallout of a lot of this. But, we'll see, right? I mean, again, backing down to controlling your controllables. Corey Buchan, happy Monday, everyone. Both of these guys are watching over on YouTube. And that's where I normally go live on, you guys. I go live on YouTube. I go live on LinkedIn. And I go live on Facebook too, because X, Twitter wants you to pay to go live on there. And I don't know. I'm not doing that, because my exposure, my channels are growing on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So I'm just kind of really focusing in on those platforms. But I was supposed to have a guest on today, but he's down south, right? So it's like I know that there's a bunch of issues down south right now as well, about power and everything. And I'm sure you guys have been following the news on that. I mean, I reached out to a couple of my friends who live in that region, and it's bad. It's like way worse than it's even being it's way worse than what's being reported out there from like the storm damage and everything else. And, I just hope that everybody's okay and that they're able to get this, get our people taken care of down there, right? Because what I'm seeing out there is it's brutal. It's really bad. And the damages are pretty catastrophic out there. So yeah, it's wild times right now, right? And again, so it's like it's always going to boil down to, what can you do, controlling your controllables and everything else. Nick, my man, says scary times ahead, had multiple years to figure this out before midnight tonight. Yeah, man, and that's That's what's crazy about this entire situation to me is how did it get to this point, right? Like I I've never hid my opinion on labor unions, all right? I'm not a fan of them, all right? And I understand why people are a fan of them, okay? I get it. I understand both sides of somebody's argument here. But ultimately when it boils down to it, now there is a certain group of individuals who could legitimately bankrupt a lot of people by going through this. And again, I see both sides of the argument here. I really do, but there's a lot of drayage drivers who are affected by this. There's a lot of people that are going to be affected by this. So it's like with your, and I'm saying that because like Nick, you bring up a great point, man. There had a lot of years to figure this out. So it's like I blame the unions, I blame all parties involved for allowing it to get to this point, because there are a lot of people who the trickle down effect are suffering and are going to suffer from this. I'm not going to sit here and hold out any optimism that they're going to be some Hail Mary thing that's going to be done and fixed here in the next fucking 12 hours or whatever it is. So yeah, man, I know what you mean. Sunny Sharma, good Monday morning, orange shirt gang. Rajwant, what is up? How are you? She says she likes to watch on LinkedIn. And then Nick also says, stay safe, protect your equipment. Looting and destruction is already happening in Asheville, North Carolina. And yeah, that's another, thing. And dude, and I've also been seeing reports as well at some of these truck stops out there in, Tennessee and everything else where like drivers are waking up to their tires being slashed and everything else. So yeah, man, there's a lot that's going on. And I try my best, you guys, with this show. I truly try my best to not talk about speculation, right? Like, because the internet is rampant with rumors about stuff that goes on out there. And then until I get verifiable proof from somebody that I know and that I trust, like my man Nick here, I trust Nick. I've had Nick on the show. And then there's others as well. When I hear it from them, I'll talk about it, but I try not to talk too much about speculation because the internet's just full of it. And it's very tough to decipher what's true and what's not true out there at times. But, we were going to talk about with my guest today, but we were going to talk about, kind of like going out on your own. And, I think it's very fitting to talk about, which I feel like is kind of the hottest topic out there on the LinkedIn right now about, being a W-2 employee or being an independent freight agent and everything else. And, I think ultimately what it boils down to is what do you want for your career? I think it's been overly glorified out there on the internet and everything else right now about how easy entrepreneurship is. And I think that you need to truly understand the reality of what you're signing yourself up for, because it's, like all of the, like, look at right now in the ports, for example. Look at all of these businesses, all of these small businesses, these drayage drivers in particular, that are now out of work. Then this is something that's outside of their control. They could have picked up every container on time, delivered every container on time. They could have done everything perfectly. And now the rug's getting pulled out from underneath them. Okay. That is a very real scenario that most entrepreneurs are going to be faced with, right? Where you're going to have all of your revenue potentially shut off outside of your control. I don't see that talked about anywhere. All right. At all about this whole, become a W-2 employee and everything else. And I'm saying if you can stomach that, if you can stomach losing your entire revenue source overnight outside of your control, and it had nothing to do with your performance, if you can stomach that, maybe you should look into becoming an independent agent, or you should go out and look about becoming your own boss and doing it for yourself, because that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? And then we also talk about I had my friends, Sean on the show on Friday. He's with Denim. Denim is a longtime supporter of my show. I'm friends with all of those guys over there. And our topic on Friday, same thing. If you can stomach being owed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and here's a prime example. Today is the last day of the month, right? How many people out there are owed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars today, and they got hundreds of thousands of payables due tomorrow that they might not be able to pay unless that comes in. And then maybe their line of credit is being reduced or something like that. If you can deal with that, then you should consider going out on your own and being your own boss. Okay. Because it's glorified about this, work-life balance and, being free and all of that stuff. And, the reality is, from my perspective, again, I can only speak about Chris Jolly's experience here. I haven't had a vacation in 4 years, you guys. All right. Now, I'm not saying that to brag, but that's the reality. I don't get to go on vacation, right? Like my son has fall break here coming up, and him and my wife, they get to go on vacation, but I'm going out on the road and I'm going to work, right? So that's another family event that I have to miss. Um, while they're out doing that, I'm going to be out, trying to build the business and everything. And that's a very real scenario you're going to find yourself in one day if you want to go out there and do this for yourself, because there is no paycheck anymore, right? There is no guaranteed revenue that comes in. I have to go out there and make this happen literally day in and day out on my own, right? And again, I signed up for this, so I'm not asking for sympathy, but like, this is what is going on out there in the real world of when you're building your business and stuff like that. So like with everybody that's out there on the internet trying to say like, oh, do this and start your own business and everything else, they leave out the real side of it, right? So, oh, hold on, my guest here, it looks like we're good to go. Hold on, Eric.
Hey, Chris.
How's it going? What's going on today, dude? How dude, I know you're out in Georgia. Like, is everything good where you're at, man?
Yeah, everything's good. It took me a minute to get going here. I was having some technical difficulties, but yeah, the weather seemed to be pretty good, pretty solid.
Yeah, man. Because we do a lot of work out in Georgia and stuff like that. And I had some friends, some carriers that we use that are in the Atlanta area. They're like, dude, we haven't had power all weekend and stuff like that. So yeah, man, it's wild out there. But dude, so A, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And B, man, so like I kind of we've just been talking here about kind of like the realities of going out on your own, starting your own business and everything. And how it's kind of overly glorified out there about like the lifestyle and everything. But like the real side of it to me is just kind of the stuff I was just talking about right there. But before we go and talk about anything like that, man, like, dude, how did you've recently joined, over at SPI, and you started out on your agency with them there, man. So like, what's that been like to do that right now with kind of like where the market is and how everything's been going?
It's interesting. I have been doing this for over 19 years, and with one company for all that time, and until I came over to SPI, I realized, pretty much everything is the same. A lot of tools that I was using back then, we're using now. But at the end of the day, really, it's just your customers. Your relationship with your customers is the most important thing in this industry. And so as an agent and having those same customers for almost 20 years, it says a lot about, how, we try to do these different things and programs to, show our customers how we can be better than the next person. But really, when it all boils down to is the relationship that you have with your customers. So starting out with SPI, it's been amazing. I've learned some things that, I was in one habit of working with one company for so many years.
Yeah.
And working with SPI, I'm, looking through all the training progress and all the different tools that SPI have to build us agents up is amazing. Yeah. It's really amazing. I love everything about it. I didn't have that before. I was pretty much thrown to the wolves when I first started. I was like, oh, you want to be an agent? Good luck. All right, we'll see you later. You're going off of our regular payroll and insurance. And, I just hope it works out for you, Eric. And it did.
Yeah.
And so, but SPI gives you a lot of tools and a lot of training to, to tone yourself. And, and have you own your craft.
So you brought up customer relationships there, man, and you've had the same customers for quite a while now.
Yeah.
It sounds like. How do you manage that, man? Because I think, talking about relationships is one thing, right? Because that's just always a buzzword, like, oh, you need to build relationships. But
Right.
if you've worked with somebody for 20 years, just like if you've been in a relationship with somebody for 5, 10, 15 years, you've undoubtedly gone through some shit, right?
That's
You've
right.
undoubtedly gone through some not so appealing situations. So what advice would you give on working through that?
It's the integrity, right? It's the integrity part. Your customers just need to know that everything you say, rather it be terrible, rather it be, just the worst news possible to their freight, that you're not lying about it. You're just telling the truth. I mean, and pretty much they understand. We always say this is, or at least my customers always say to me, Eric, don't stress, it's just freight. And I took that and, I worked with that. And I don't know. I think it's just the integrity portion of your relationship with your customer. The bad, the good, the ugly. You just got to be honest with them.
Dude, you're bringing up a really good point. I don't mean to cut you off, but like I'm listening to Shoe Dog right now, the Phil Knight's autobiography,
Okay.
and about building Nike, and he talked about how when he switched from being like an agent for a shoe company in Japan to starting Nike, and how like their first samples and everything were like not up to par, right? Like they were clearly not as good as what they were used to. And they were at this really big shoe show in Chicago, and they were getting orders though from Nike, and for the Nike portion of their business. And they, like, one of the sales reps went up and asked like one of their customers, like, why are you buying all of these? And they said, it's because you guys have never lied to us one time. And if you are saying this about this product, we believe you.
Right.
And then it was like that thing in Phil Knight's mind. He said at that time, we're always going to tell the truth no matter what. And it seems so simple, right, Eric, to sit here and be like, oh, tell the truth and do that. But like, you're bringing up one of the most overlooked things, I think, in business is that ownership aspect of it, where if things aren't going right, you're telling the truth no matter what. You're not trying to hide anything. And everybody knows to do that in the moment, but people don't always do that. I would argue 95% of the people bullshit in that moment to try and protect themselves, as opposed to ripping that Band-Aid off and just telling the truth.
That's right. That's right. I learned that years ago. I was working at a company, and I had never knew the whole time they were recording conversations on the phone. So my hours were late at night, and I was just on the phone talking shit with my friends all night, while working. But I mean, I had a desk job, but I was just on the phone and I didn't realize. And when it was brought to my attention, of course, I tried to deny it. And then they walked me into the room where the recording was and said, Eric, this is it. And then I realized then and there, you know what? In any industry or any job, it is just best to just be honest. If it's bad, just be honest. If it's something you definitely don't want to get out there, just be honest, because you never know what the other person's reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where if something goes wrong with the load or a shipment, I'll get the carrier and the customer on the line together. A lot of times in this industry, they don't talk to each other. So I have no problem in the customer hearing exactly where their freight is from the driver, what happened, all the details of what happened if there was ever an incident. So that's what my customers like. They just like that raw honesty,
Yeah. I think everybody does, man, ultimately, right? Like I had a really good friend of mine. I mean, he's been a shipper for 30 some plus years.
Oh, wow.
And, he came on the show a while ago, and, and that advice that he told me then has still stuck with me every single day. He's like, you can have a bad day, a bad week, or a bad month of service, but he's like, you cannot have a bad day of communication.
That's right.
And I think ultimately, if you deduce all of what we're doing down here, and it doesn't matter if you're a truck driver, a shipper, a broker, or it doesn't matter, you just cannot have a bad day of communication, right? And if you can adhere to that, and again, it boils down to doing the right thing, telling the truth, everything, because ultimately, you don't take somebody else's ability to do their job away from them, right? Because
That's
it's
right.
like maybe that product, maybe there's a couple of pallets that they can just air freight out that, of extra stuff that they can get to that product to their customer in time, and that'll hold them over until the truck gets fixed or whatever it is, right? Like game plan strategize in that moment. Don't try and take anybody's ability to operate away, because that is what costs you business.
Exactly.
It's not the truck breaking down. It's not a driver being late. Hell, it's not even you entering the wrong PO number as a broker, or none of that. It's none
Right.
of that. It's you not communicating that there's a problem. That is the actual issue.
Yep. And helping find a solution.
Yeah.
I apologize for my phone ringing, but
No, it's all good.
helping find the solution for that, issue is also the key. There's a lot of times where you have to look for a warehouse you can't deliver. So you have to be the one to look for a warehouse. And I've been in many situations where I've been on a road or out on vacation, and a driver couldn't deliver because
Mhm.
they didn't tell us the warehouse was going to close. So not only, did I have to tell the driver or the customer their freight wasn't going to be there, but the fact that I had to put it somewhere else until it gets back to the warehouse is open, and store it safely. So, I mean, you just got to tell the truth, find a solution, get the customer, just make them happy, pretty
And
much.
I think that it's always, obviously it's always easier when we're in a controlled environment like this right now,
Yeah.
talking about that
Yep.
it's not us that has one of our shipments in that moment. But if there's somebody out there who's listening to that, I mean, dude, you've been doing this for 20 years, Eric. I've been doing this for like 15, right? Like I've had a lot of shit go wrong, right? Like I've had a lot. What's one piece of advice you would give to that person right now? Like in the event that they're going through this for the first time or maybe the fifth time and they just don't know what to do, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
The one piece of advice is just to stay calm and think logically.
Mhm.
Think about the customer. Think about the customer's need. If that product has to be there at a specific time, no matter what, stop for a moment and think about what the customer needs and explain to the customer if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Just calm them down, but just be honest with that one customer. Be honest with that customer.
Have you ever been in a situation, man, where you didn't know what to do and you just called your customer and you're like, hey, this is what's going on. I don't
Yes.
know what to do here.
The funny thing, out of the 20 years I've been doing this, I've only had one issue where I used a carrier. They picked up a shipment for me. Most of my shipments are chemicals.
Okay.
With my customers, they picked up a shipment for me, and they didn't show up for the receiver. I finally got them on the phone after trying, numerous times, and they were holding my load hostage. They didn't tell the driver. Well, in other words, they were paying the driver a large amount of money to do this load, not what I was paying them. So they kept me from getting the driver's information. This was at a time where, it wasn't really that important to get the driver's information, or
Yeah.
at least I didn't think it was.
For
It
sure.
was the very beginning of my career. So I didn't get the driver's information. So I couldn't talk with the driver. The driver was on standby, ready to deliver, but he needed to get paid first or something like that.
Yeah.
It was where they were holding my load hostage, and they said I had to pay them a certain amount in order for that driver to deliver. And all I wished was, at that moment, if I had that driver's information, I would be able to tell them what this carrier is doing to both of us. But the customer, I had to completely be honest with the customer, and that sucked. And the customer was like, you know what, just go ahead and pay it. We'll take care of it. We understand what happened. We know you. We know our relationship with you. Just pay whatever it takes. But make sure you get the driver's information when he shows up at that warehouse. And we did. And we talked to the driver, and he was really good about everything. And somehow, some way, I think we paid it, but it was able to bounce back as the driver was delivering. So it didn't go out to that terrible carrier that was trying to take our load for hostage. But in that instance, the the takeaway was just be honest with the customer. They were willing to pay it because they understood. They thought it sucked.
Yeah.
But the lesson was get the driver's information every time. Just get the driver's information.
It's funny how you came to that conclusion, not because everything was going right. And I'm kind of being sarcastic when I'm saying that, right? And I bring that up because it's like that's just how you improve, right? Like that's how you get better. I think a lot of those moments they either make or break most people, right? Like some people are faced with a situation like that, Eric, and then they quit. They're like, I'm done. I'm never doing this shit ever again. Right. And then there's another group of people who are like, well, God, that sucked. But like, how do I fix this? How do I fix this moving forward? And then what you realize is that's where the magic really is, right? Yep. That's how you get better and better and better. Because otherwise, like, man, again, if everything's going right, nobody needs you, right? That's like ultimately, nobody needs you. And I think like that's kind of the effect of what's going on in the market right now is everybody's good enough. You know, they don't really need any new providers right now, right? Yep. But I think at least my mentality when I'm out there and I am when I'm going through, like when I'm cold calling and stuff, like I know that if anybody called my number and said, hey, let's roll, I know that I'm going to be able to deliver them a quality product, right?
That's right.
So it's like, as I'm going through a lot of that, and it is because like, as Cody says here, your best teacher is your last mistake. And fortunately, I've been through a shitload of those situations, Eric, where it's like, I feel very confident. And then especially with a couple of the scenarios that I was faced with this year that I had never been faced with yet. And again, I've been doing this for a long time where now I'm like, I'm able to think on my feet. I'm more confident in my abilities. And that all comes from going through, less than favorable situations at the time. But what I realize is damn, that's why I am like, that's why I feel the way that I feel about a lot of this stuff, man, is because like I've been through it. And as I say a lot, Eric, I just know a lot of what not to do. And I feel like I'm at an advantage in that situation where I just know what not to do in this industry.
Right. Yeah, I used to have a checklist. I started a checklist after that. I would just go down my checklist, get driver's information, get the receiver's phone number, talk to the receiver, talk to the shipper. Like I just had to do a checklist. And after a while, I memorized the checklist. And it's just something you have to do, moving forward. But, those are all the mistakes everyone learns when starting in this, industry.
Yeah. And I think that, at least from my perspective, man, is it's like that's the only way that you're going to really see if you have the stomach to want to do what we do, right? As independent agents or, being an entrepreneur and going out on your own is when you are inevitably faced with these mistakes and failures and everything else. Like, are you going to learn from them? Are you going to create the process? Because I was just talking about this last week, right? Like there is no manual when you're out on your own. There's not. You create your own. So it's like, it's those situations that you're describing right there, Eric. Like that's why you were able to continue to move forward where it's like, all right, boom, I got to create this checklist. I got to follow this checklist.
That's right.
And, it's like, that's why I love talking to people who are out on this journey as well, because I feel like it's just been overly glorified about what it could actually be. Yes, it can be extremely lucrative, but there's just so much that you have to go through and that you will inevitably go through to kind of start, reaping those rewards.
That's right. Yeah. Someone told me a long time ago that it's like it's like a funnel, you reach out there, you get a hold of someone's information, it goes in a funnel with all these other people. And at the end of the day, it may only boil down to one customer, but at least you're continuously feeding that funnel to get new business. I remember when right before COVID hit, I picked up and moved out of New York and moved to Atlanta. My customers said, listen, Eric, we have a really big opportunity for you. I had been moving hundreds and hundreds of freight for them, once a month. And they were like, we got a bigger opportunity for you. I moved to Georgia, picked up, bought a house. I was all excited the day I unpacked my last bag and ready to go to work. They said, you know what, Eric, I'm sorry. We chose another carrier. And I was devastated. So I had to go into, fight or flight mode. And
Mhm.
it was like, I reached out to every receiver and shipper that was not part of that company that I could think of. I
Mhm.
reached out to every one of them. And because I had talked to them, some of the people there on scheduling appointments for deliveries, I knew names, I knew hours of some of the employees. And I asked them, hey, can I start moving freight for your company? And it worked. And that was all through the pandemic. It was right around the time of the pandemic. And it worked. Freight did, slow down for a minute, but reaching out to, if what I would tell agents that are looking for new customers, reach out to those places where we've delivered or we, picked up from that is not the actual customer. And I
Mhm.
got a lot of business doing that. Some I'm still with today.
Was it just calling them and just essentially saying like, "Hey, I deliver at this facility down the
Yep.
street from you," and stuff like that? Kinda walk me through that, man. How did that look?
Yeah, so I would just pick up the phone, give them a call, or I would call the actual receiver that we delivered to and tell them,
Mhm.
hey, listen, I delivered at your facility before. I am looking to move more freight. Is it possible I can move freight for your company directly? And send them some information. I had this one deal that I would do. I would get the Starbucks. You remember the cups at Starbucks where you
Oh,
can
yeah.
write on them?
Yep.
I would put my name, my phone number, and mail out them a cup and say, call me when you want something moved on the cup. And a lot of times it worked.
I love it.
Um, so yeah, I mean, even I would suggest, like you just said, was it places right next door? I would even ask them, are you this warehouse? Are you working with another warehouse? Are you working with another company that move freight within this warehouse? I just would ask every possible question, almost as if I was desperate. And
Yeah.
they were willing to listen and help out. And some wasn't, but it's just like a funnel. You just put as much out there as you possibly can, and eventually one will stick.
Yeah, I think that's, again, that's another piece of sound advice, right? Because you're
Yeah,
not just gonna go from 0 to $100 million overnight. You're
that's
gonna
right.
you're gonna put forth a ton of effort. You're gonna onboard a customer, then that's gonna be it for a while. You're gonna plateau, and then you're gonna add another, and then it's
That's
just
right.
gonna be a constant shuffle, right? Like it just takes so much longer than I think anybody wants in those moments, right? Like,
Right.
at least for me, man, like, dude, I feel like it's been 4 years. I mean, it has been a little over 4 years, and I feel like I just got my first actual system down for like this media stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it took a long time because like, dude, I had no system. I had nothing, man. Like I was just figuring it out for the longest time. And then it's like I got a couple of advertisers, and then I was like, damn, this is an actual business. And then, I lost some advertisers, and then I gained some other ones. And, again, it's that ratchet approach, right? Where you're going to
That's
gain
right.
some, you're going to lose, and then you're going to go up, up, and then it's just going to, then all of a sudden your worst month would have been like a record month for you when you first started. So it's like, it's a process that takes so much time to kind of get up and get going. And, man, I try and keep, like, I know that you had some issues there this morning. I'm gonna have you back, Eric. I think we got a lot more to talk about here.
Yes.
And I try and keep these shows at about the 30-minute mark, but like, dude, how does anybody reach out to you to find out more if they just want to talk, or, kind of like, hey man, you've been doing this for 20 years. I haven't. Can I get some advice from you?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is ejordan@spi3pl.com. My phone number is 404-993-9005. Just reach out to me, give me a call, and I have some really good tips on just fun suggestions to send out to customers to make them laugh. Be like, you know what, this guy sent me this. This is kind of interesting. I'm gonna give him a call.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. I love it,
Yeah.
Eric. Well, hey, thank you so much for jumping on. And yeah, you guys, we'll be back tomorrow. Eric, I'm gonna have you back on, man. I feel like we can go for a while here. But as always, you guys, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's gonna see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.